Shoutout, my totally Tubular gamers, back with another video. Let's get to it.
Well, I'm back with another 3D platformer video. We've had a few of these, and today we're talking about the 20 best modern 3D platformers that you could play. Now, obviously 3D platformers have been around for a long time, but today's video is just going to focus on the newer ones. I'm going to be looking at really 2013, 2014, and on. We'll be looking at 3D platformers that you can play today on your modern system, you know, your PS5, your Switch, your Xbox Series, even your PC. And we're also going to be looking at games that released for the first time on a modern console. So no re-releases, no remakes, no enhanced ports, none of that. So sorry Sonic X Shadow Generations, you're not going to be here today. I'm just looking at new titles here, and this list is actually in order from worst to best. I say worst, but all of these games are at the very least good, and I can say that because I have played all of these games. I can vouch for all 20 of these games. What I can't vouch for, though, is games I haven't played. So please let me know down below of some games y'all think I should check out, or games that maybe should have made the list. A bunch of people have recommended some awesome looking 3D platformers, but I haven't played every single one, so please let me know down below of any that I might not have talked about today. I am just one man after all, and this one man is producing this entire video. So with that, please like, share, comment, subscribe. You are supporting just me and only me. Got the Patreon and the super thanks. Any support is truly greatly appreciated. So with that, let's get to number 20. So sneaking into last place, we have Sackboy: A Big Adventure. Yep, you know it's going to be a good list of games when this one just barely squeezes in. So Sackboy: A Big Adventure is not Little Big Planet 4. It is a spin-off from Little Big Planet starring Sackboy going up against this evil new figure known as Vex, not Gex, Vex. And while the story is pretty simple, it still is rather charming. This game in general is rather charming. If you're somebody who liked Little Big Planet's vibe or atmosphere, you're probably going to enjoy this. Like Little Big Planet, it is cooperative. It goes up to 4 players in co-op, and the game certainly is a lot more fun in co-op. And what you have here is a decent little 3D platformer. I'm not going to act like this game reinvents the wheel because it certainly does not. I would say the most comparable 3D platformer is actually Super Mario 3D World, given the camera perspectives, the general level design, and the cooperative nature of the entire game. But the game still has its moments for sure. There are plenty of good levels here, and even though Sackboy's moveset is relatively simple, there are still a number of power-ups that do show up in some of these levels. There actually are some pretty good levels here, like when they try to sync up the entire level to a song, with my personal favorite being the level that is synced to Jungle Boogie. I've always loved that song, but there are some good levels here. Something that's kind of nice about this game is it's not as simple as just point A to B. There are these dreamer orbs that show up in these levels, and you will actually have to collect a number of them if you want to progress through the game, and so some exploration is required here. You're never going to have to go too far off the beaten path or backtrack, but it's just nice that there is a little bit more incentive than just trying to get to the end of the level. And hey, at the very least, these are some really good looking levels. All of the levels look pretty distinct from each other. Sackboy's really cute, all of his little animations are pretty awesome, and you can completely customize them. From a visual standpoint, that is. You can give him some pretty cool looking costumes. And while he might not have the deepest moveset, he still does control and handle pretty well. And so you might be wondering, why is this game at number 20? Well, I think the other 19 3D platformers really are just better in several key areas. While the level design is fine for the most part, it doesn't ever really go past good. The bosses are a joke, and it never really felt like the game kicked it into the highest gear. It felt like it kept getting pretty close, and then the game just kind of ends. There's also no level creator, which is a real shame. I feel like this game could have totally benefited from it. Regardless of all of that, I think this is still a good 3D platformer. And so here we have New Super Lucky's Tale, an enhanced remake of Super Lucky's Tale. Now, I never played the original game, only this new version, and I thought this was a good little time. Similar to Sackboy, this game didn't wow me or blow my socks off or anything like that, but it was still a chill little 3D platformer. So the game stars Lucky, this brave fox who sets out on a quest to help his sister Lyra to protect this Book of Ages. And the story's pretty simple and cute. This newer version actually adds a bunch of extra context about like Lucky and his family, and I think it's all just very charming. It really reminds me of all the platformers I grew up playing as a kid, especially thanks to its cuddly, friendly, happy atmosphere. Now when it comes to actually playing this game, it is a pretty straightforward platformer. You're dropped into these hub areas where you can take on a number of levels in any order of your choosing, and each level offers something different. Sometimes you're in more open 3D areas where you gotta do some platforming, you gotta do some tasks for certain characters. Other times it's actually stuck to a 2D plane, and there's even some auto runner levels in there, but most levels do a good job at feeling different from the last. As you play through these levels, you want to collect these pages which contain clover emblems, and once you get enough of these for the entire world, then you can go take on the boss, move on to the next world, rinse and repeat. So the structure of the game is quite shrimple, but the gameplay isn't as shrimple as it looks. Lucky has a number of unique abilities to use at his disposal, with my favorite being the burrowing. I love just going into the ground and digging all over the place. I'm not exactly sure why, but I always had fun with this, and the game does control pretty well. Some levels even feature a number of puzzles, but as you would guess, these puzzles are also pretty shrimple. Despite the game's rather shrimplistic nature, I still had a nice time with this game. Look, it's not going to be particularly taxing, it's not crazy involved or particularly challenging, but sometimes you need just a good chill game to spend a few hours on. The game isn't particularly long and the pacing was good throughout. It looks nice and the soundtrack was pretty cute. Look, the game isn't remarkable, but not every game needs to be a 10 out of 10. And I think fans of the genre are gonna like this one. And so here we have the infamous ukulele. I'm sure plenty of people are going to be just shaking their head that I even included this game, but hear me out for a second. Obviously the game is nowhere near as good as either of the Banjos or really any of Rare's 3D platformers, but taken by itself, I think it is a pretty decent 3D platformer. It absolutely does have some issues, but I would argue that none of them are a deal breaker, and if you're able to look past some of these issues, I think you're still gonna have a pretty fun time. So obviously this game is very much a throwback to Banjo and Kazooie. Yuka is this gecko thing and Leal is this bat, and the two of them team up to collect pages. The game very much goes for that Banjo aesthetic and vibe, and while it does hit it in certain areas like with the character designs, I feel like it doesn't quite hit the same atmosphere that the Banjo games had, but I still think it's decent enough, and the music, it's actually pretty okay. When it comes to the presentation, I know a lot of people were rather mixed on this one, but I always thought the game looked okay. You gotta remember this is an indie game after all. You can't expect AAA out here. When it comes to the moment-to-moment gameplay though, it is extremely similar to Banjo. Basically, it sees Yuka and Leal getting dropped into these rather large environments and being told that they have to collect so many pages in order to get to the next level. And it's entirely up to the player which pages they want to get. Some of them are just hidden throughout the level and you'll have to do some good old-fashioned 3D platforming. Other times, you're gonna have to do something or a few things for a character in order to get a pagey. But in order to get any of these, you're gonna have to utilize their moveset. Like their bear and bird counterpart, they have a pretty unique moveset that involves the two of them teaming up to do a number of different things. I think their moveset is okay in this game. It's not great, but it's certainly not bad either, and the environment does take advantage of it for the most part. As for the controls and the handling, I think it's pretty good. It's not as precise as I'd like it, but it gets the job done. Now, all of this does sound pretty good, but yeah, this game does have some issues. My issues with it aren't really anything new to bring to the table. I think the levels are just way too big. It's so easy to get lost in them. There's a lot of dead space. It really messes with the pacing of the game. The game doesn't have a great sense of exploration like some of its contemporaries. There are a fair amount of pages that are just frustrating or annoying to collect, and the camera's just not very good. Look, we've come a long way from 2000 with Banjo-Tooie, and I think a lot of people were expecting some more modern quality of life improvements, and this game can feel rather antiquated at times. I guess it makes for a good throwback, but for being a modern 3D platformer, it certainly is lacking in a few areas. The game needed much better navigation. I know that this game is getting remastered, remade, whatever the hell they're calling it, here in 2025, so here's hoping the new version is better than ever and I can have the game way higher on the list. But as it stands, I think Yooka-Laylee is an alright 3D platformer, but it could have been a lot better. So here's a game I'm always going to champion, and that is Schim. This is a really simple indie 3D platformer that sees you playing as this little blob thing, and you jump from shadow to shadow. It really is as shrimple as that. You can't really move in the light, you have to go from shadow to shadow, and the game finds plenty of interesting ways to get you moving through the shadows. For instance, you can go in the shadows of cars, of people, of other buildings. There's plenty of shadows to jump between in this game. Tens, hundreds, dozens even of shadows to jump across. And your objective really is to just go from point A to B. You don't have a complex moveset, you really are just jumping from shadow to shadow, and it's just as chill as it sounds. Occasionally you'll have to interact with the environment or solve a very rudimentary basic puzzle, but it really is as chill as it gets. The game looks really nice, it has a striking art style, the music is actually pretty good, and it's just an insanely relaxing time. Not every game needs to be this super involved, complex, in-depth 3D platformer. Sometimes I just want a chill time, and that's exactly what this game is. It's obviously not for everybody, but I'll always say it's a good, relaxing game. So here's maybe the strangest game of the entire list, Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom. I had never heard of this game. It wasn't until a bunch of people started recommending the game to me that I finally checked it out and went, oh yeah, I gotta check this one out, and it did not disappoint. This is such a creative, weird little game. It's easy playing as this small yellow taxi wind-up toy, and you're tasked with collecting these gears for this Italian fella named Mario, who is in no way, shape, or form connected, related, or correlated to anyone named Mario in the history of existence. But yeah, you gotta collect these gears. When it comes to this game's structure, it's actually pretty similar to N64 Collectathons. The game prides itself on being a throwback to older Collectathons, where you're dropped into these rather large environments and are told, have at it, get all of the gears. Okay, you don't need all of them, but you'll need a majority of them if you want to get through the game. And collecting these gears, it's pretty engaging. What makes this game so engaging, what makes it as good as it is the moveset. There's actually no jump button in this game. Instead, it's all about dashing and air maneuvers, and you know what? The movement is crazy in this game. It is not a driving game, even though you play as a yellow taxi, but man, you got some real good-ass driving maneuvers here. It just goes crazy. There's so many things you can string together, and what's even better is that the game absolutely takes advantage of this. It expects you to go nuts with the moveset. It encourages you to go nuts with the moveset, to try to string together all of these moves to get some serious air, and it's a whole lot of fun. The level design is great, the objectives that show up are a whole lot of fun, the game looks trippy as all hell, but I really do like how it looks, and the soundtrack ain't half bad either. It's not the longest game, but the pacing seems to be pretty good throughout. There are a few top-down sections, and I don't really care much for these, and the time levels can be a little annoying, but for the most part, this is a pretty solid 3D platformer that really needs some more love. The moveset goes hard, it's pretty fun, it's got a great sense of humor, the visuals and music are all over the damn place, and you're playing as a freaking car. Sure, there are plenty of other 3D platformers that are better than this one, but how many of them have you playing as a car the entire time? None of them. And so if you're looking for a really different kind of 3D platformer, maybe consider checking this one out. I don't think you're going to be disappointed. At the very least, you're not going to be disappointed with those visuals, man. Those colors just pop. Well, from one movement-based platformer to the next, here we have Demon Turf. So Demon Turf is an interesting one. It stars this demon girl known as Beebs, who's going to go and defeat the Demon King because he invaded her dreams. Yeah, it's as shrimple as that sometimes. The game has a fun vibe to it, and it's certainly got some attitude. Now, when it comes to the gameplay, I will say this game goes pretty crazy. Essentially, they said, what if we made the biggest moveset for like any 3D platformer ever, and then just built the whole game around that crazy moveset? This game goes so hard with the moveset. There are so many different things you can do. There are so many maneuvers. We could be here all day explaining all of them. Beebs has a number of moves that she can do from pretty much any point, but then you can chain a bunch of these moves together and chain even more, and the further you get through the game, you unlock even more moves. Then you can chain all of these together, and what's great is that the game absolutely expects you to utilize this moveset. It expects you to take advantage of this moveset. It wants to see you take advantage of this moveset. They actively encourage it. The goal of every level is to collect the battery, but how you get there is almost entirely up to you. You can place a checkpoint down wherever you want, meaning you can respawn wherever you want, and you can find some pretty crazy shortcuts in these levels, and the game totally wants you to. You'll frequently find yourself skipping areas in these levels because you're just taking advantage of the moveset. Eventually some time trials show up, and yeah, you're gonna have to be real quick in these levels if you want to get those. And it really is a whole lot of fun stringing together all these moves to cover so much ground so quickly. You know, when I first played this game, I thought it was actually a bit slow. It really wasn't coming together for me, but after a few hours, everything just clicked, and I started going crazy with the moveset, and I started to have a lot more fun with the game. I think the level design and the pacing are pretty solid here. I just love how accommodating that level design really is, and I think the game is good. I do have one issue with it though. I don't really like the combat of this game. I've just never really had much fun with the combat of Demon Turf. The best part is when you're platforming, and I absolutely recommend this game to anybody that is looking for a crazy 3D platformer. If you're somebody that liked Mario's moveset, or you liked getting stars in incorrect ways or orders or just creative ways, this is essentially that for the entire game. It's also pretty visually distinct, and the game actually has a good length to it, taking well over 10 hours, and there's plenty plenty of replayability with this one. And then there's also a standalone expansion to this game, Demon Turf Neon Splash, but I have yet to try this one. There's also a sequel coming, and I did try the demo for that one, and oh yeah, it's just as expressive as this one. Either way, Demon Turf, this game goes pretty hard. But speaking of going hard, here we have Corn Kid 64. Now, Corn Kid 64 might not visually be the strongest game on this list. It's probably the weakest game of this entire list visually. But I tell you, this game does do a number of things right. The premise and story is just frankly bizarre. I think it's kind of like Children of the Corn. It sees you playing as this goat baby thing who keeps having a bad dream, and his friend Alexis is going to try to help him get out of it, and yeah, that's really the entire story. The game features a few rather large environments that you get to freely explore around at your own pace, and you'll be collecting these red crystal gem ball things. But in order to collect these, you're really going to have to utilize your moveset. Like Demon Turf, your moveset goes really hard in this game. While you do have a number of jumps and abilities, it's all about stringing all of them together in order to cover some serious ground, especially when a wall is concerned. You can do some crazy shit with walls in this game, and the game expects you to go nuts with the walls. All of these levels are designed in a way for you to fully take advantage of this moveset. You will not beat this game if you aren't taking advantage of the moveset. The first level is pretty simple, and they just kind of show you how to use everything. But after that, no. You gotta go nuts with the moveset or you are getting nowhere in this game. But I gotta say, I had a lot of fun exploring these areas. There's a great sense of exploration, and it was just fun to do some good old 3D platforming. This game focuses entirely on being an expressive platformer, and yeah, it was genuinely a really fun time. I love the vibes of this game, not just the CRT filter, but the actual aesthetic and vibes. The music is just fantastic. It really is just banger after banger when it comes to that OST. This game is an absolute banger. While it isn't the biggest, it's not the longest, and it's certainly not the prettiest game of this list, it really is a great time. The game certainly got some charm to it. It's quirky, it's weird, it's straight up bizarre in some aspects, but it's also probably the best throwback to an N64 3D platformer that we've ever gotten. If it's not the best, it's certainly one of the best. Anybody that's a fan of this genre or a fan of older 3D platformers should check this one out. It's also pretty cheap. So here's one that I feel like is often forgotten about. It is SpongeBob SquarePants The Cosmic Shake. Now, SpongeBob is no stranger to 3D platformers. Battle for Bikini Bottom is one of the best 3D platformers of them all. And so what if I told you that this was essentially the follow-up to Battle for Bikini Bottom, like 20 years later? Yeah, there was the SpongeBob movie game, but that game was a lot more linear and different in some areas. Here, it very much is the spiritual successor to BFBB, and it's great. Sure, it's not the most innovative 3D platformer, but it's polished, it's tight, and it's way better than you would believe. So the story of this one is pretty simple. It sees SpongeBob traveling across several alternate realities known as wish worlds in order to save their friends and really all of Bikini Bottom while collecting this cosmic jelly for this mysterious mermaid. The story, plot, characters, attitude of the game, it really is what you would expect for a SpongeBob game. Now when it comes to the actual moment-to-moment gameplay, it is virtually identical to the Battle for Bikini Bottom remake. So yeah, it is quite good. It feels like a throwback, a love letter to 3D platformers from the 2000s. It feels like it's from that era, and I mean that is a good thing. It doesn't feel outdated or archaic in any sense. There actually are some nice modern quality of life improvements. For instance, the camera is actually pretty good, better than it ever was in Battle for Bikini Bottom. And the controls are rock solid as well. You'll always have total control over SpongeBob, and his moveset, it's not the most expansive, it's about as deep as it was in Battle for Bikini Bottom, but it feels like the environments actually utilize it. And speaking of environments, you'll go through a number of different levels that are all very different from the last. They're all in different alternate realities, and I can appreciate that there is some variety here. The level design itself is pretty standard. For the most part, it's rather linear, but from time to time you'll be in the more open, non-linear areas, and it is a collectathon. The main collectible isn't golden spatulas, now it's cosmic jelly, but there are some other collectibles that show up here as well, and there's even some side missions that show up in these areas. And all of this really leads to just a really cozy experience. This game made me feel like a kid again. It feels like a game that I would have played through when I was a kid in the 2000s, and I'm certain that's the vibe they were going for. Sure, it's not the most complex game on this list, but it might be the coziest of them all. It looks nice, it actually looks really nice, and it's very colorful, it's got a great sense of humor, the gameplay is solid enough, the pacing is good, and there's a decent amount of replayability here. If you like SpongeBob at all, this one is worth checking out. So here we have a very familiar one. We have Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. Now Ratchet & Clank doesn't really need an introduction when it comes to 3D platformers. They've been around the block since the PS2 days, and this latest one, Rift Apart, is easily the best one of the last 10 years. While I certainly don't think it's the best Ratchet & Clank game ever, I can still appreciate it and say that it is a good game. It certainly is the best looking Ratchet & Clank game. Like, wow, this is a real looker of a video game. Everything from the environments to the animation to the character models to how seamless and fast everything loads in. The presentation is truly phenomenal. I don't think you'll find anybody complaining about the graphics. When it comes to the story, it's a little different from the other Ratchet & Clank games. Yeah, it is about Ratchet & Clank going up against Nefarious, but they introduce a new character known as Rivet, a female Lombax who has her own agenda. While the plot isn't really anything all that special or goes beyond the Saturday morning cartoon, and you'll probably forget all about it a month or two after you play the game, I still think it's alright, and the game does have a good sense of humor. When it comes to the gameplay though, it is that Ratchet & Clank gameplay you know and love, where it's a mix of 3D platforming and plenty of combat. When it comes to the control and feel, it controls like an absolute dream. You do get to play as Rivet, and she controls exactly the same as Ratchet. They're basically interchangeable, and I don't got any issues there. And like every other RNC game, as you play through it, you get new abilities, and the levels try to take advantage of those abilities. The level design is good here. There's actually some cool open areas that you get to like freely explore that I certainly had some fun with, like the big swamp level, and there's some cool side missions that show up in here as well. But of course, there are plenty of linear levels with big moments and set pieces where the game just absolutely flexes the power of the PS5, the power of the SSD. This game was like the selling game when it came to how fast things could load, and yeah, it's pretty cool how fast everything loads, where you're jumping between these vastly different worlds in seconds. It's incredibly impressive, and it leads to some great levels. When it comes to the combat though, yeah, it's that RNC combat. You do get a lot of familiar weapons in this game from the older ones, but there's plenty of new awesome weapons in this game as well. You get plenty of big guns to blow shit up, and that's all that's really going to matter at the end of the day. You of course get to upgrade these weapons, and I think overall there's a good selection here. There are even a few moments though where you don't play as Ratchet or Rivet. Nah, you get to play as Clank, where he's like a Time Lord and he gets to make clones of himself, and this is fine. Not great, just fine. All in all, I think Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart is a good game. If you like this series, you're going to enjoy this game. I do wish it was a little longer, and I wish it brought a few more new ideas to the table, but I still think this is a rather enjoyable time. And so here we have a late entry to the list. We have A Hat in Time. Now, I had actually never played this game up until very recently when I streamed it, and after playing through it, I gotta say, this is actually one of the best modern 3D platformers of them all. It's not AAA, it's not even AA, it's an indie 3D platformer, and it's one of the best. So the premise isn't complex by any means. It sees you playing as this little girl known as Hat Kid, who is trying to collect these lost time pieces in order to power her ship and eventually go home. And along the way, there'll be plenty of characters and obstacles to try to stop her. The story and world is actually rather charming, and you can tell there's just a lot of love and care put into not only all of the characters and environments, but the world in general. When it comes to the gameplay, it's a mix of like Super Mario Sunshine and Banjo-Kazooie. You'll be dropped into this big open environment, but you're given a pretty specific objective. You've got to go do something in order to get the timepiece. But there are plenty of other hidden collectibles in these areas. It's worth exploring all of these areas to the fullest. And I gotta say, I think the game has a good sense of exploration. It's cool that the game actually tells you what your like main objective for each of these timepieces are, and it'll even tell you where the general location is, but exploring around, it was fun in this game. And one of the reasons it's fun is because you actually have a good moveset here. Yeah, it is rather similar to Mario's, but like Mario's, you can kind of mess with it, abuse it, I don't know what else you'd call it, utilize it to the fullest, and you can actually get some pretty good air, and there's some good movement tech here. No, it's not Corn Kids or Demon Turf, but there still is more than meets the eye here, and the game actually does control very well. I like these areas, I like how it feels, and I like how you collect a lot of these timepieces. While there are plenty of them where you just gotta go find it in the wild or do some platforming, a lot of the time you'll have to do some objectives, and there's some really cute objectives in this game, like this murder mystery on the train, or when you go to the spooky woods and you have to sell your soul. Like, there's some good stuff here. It's memorable, it's funny, and I found the entire game to be pretty entertaining. Sure, at times it can feel a little janky or not as polished as I would like, and the presentation sometimes leaves a bit to be desired, but if you're able to look past that, you have one of the finest 3D platformers of the 2010s. I'm kind of mad at myself that it took me this long to finally check the game out, but hey, better late than never. At least I can include it on a list like this. It's worth playing. And so sliding into the number 10 spot, we have Sonic Frontiers. While I know that this game is certainly not everyone's cup of tea, I actually quite enjoyed this one and would say that it's the best 3D Sonic game since Sonic Generations. There was just a number of things that I actually quite enjoyed about Sonic Frontiers, one of them being the story, where it sees Sonic ending up on this mysterious island and going up against this strange girl to try to rescue his friends. While it starts out pretty simple, I actually really like the direction the story takes, and I can especially appreciate how the game actually does connect back to several other Sonic games, and it shows that these characters have grown throughout the years. There was a lot of fan service here, and I can appreciate that. Something else that I can appreciate is the gameplay. So instead of it being like a big open world, there are open zones that you can freely explore to your heart's content, and there's actually a few collectibles you'll have to collect in this game in order to progress. These like metal things which you get from little platforming challenges, and you'll have to go into cyberspace and complete these more traditional linear 3D Sonic levels that are throwbacks to Sonic's past. So of course, you know, more Green Hill Zone. Now, while I know that a lot of people don't care for these open zones, I actually found these incredibly fun to explore. I had a great time just running around at the speed of sound trying to get as many of these collectibles as possible. I love just how many there are. I love how expansive and big some of these areas feel. I like how many platforming challenges are present, and the game has a great sense of speed. I love how fast you get to go in this game. Something else that's pretty prevalent in this game that you wouldn't expect is combat actually, but the combat is good. A lot of it is high speed chases, and there's actually some really cool boss fights in this game, especially when you're supersonic. The combat for the rest of the game, yeah, it's just kind of alright. Something else that I really like about the game is the presentation. Outside of the somewhat low draw distance, I think the game actually looks pretty good and it ran really nice as well. The music is just as great as you would expect. But something I want to give a big shout out to Sonic Frontiers about is the controls. The controls feel great in this game. It's arguably the best controlling 3D Sonic game of them all. Like, it's not super slippery, but it's not super tight either. It just feels right. It feels nice. And legit, it's hard to go back to any other 3D Sonic game once you've had Sonic Frontiers controls. Something else I can actually appreciate about this game is that it's got length to it. This is probably the longest Sonic game ever made, taking well beyond the 10-hour mark, and you can probably double that if you want to 100% the game. And so you might be wondering, well, why isn't it a little higher? Well, I hate the pinball crap at the end of the game, and I'm not a fan of a lot of these cyberspace levels, and Sonic just doesn't control as well in these, especially in the 2D section. But neither of these issues are game breaking, and I can easily look past both of them to say that this is one of the better Sonic games overall. While I know plenty of people disagree, I still think this is a good one and worth checking out, especially if you've ever been a fan of this series. So coming in the number 9 spot, we have Kirby and the Forgotten Land. It's pretty easy to forget about this one. You like what I did there?
Shut up, bitch!
But I don't think this one should be slept on. Yeah, it took like 20 something years to finally get a 3D Kirby game, but what we got here is actually rather great. When it comes to the story, it sees Kirby going off into this forgotten land to go rescue all of the Waddle Dees and figure out what the hell's going on. But I mean, it's also a Kirby game, so a deep narrative is probably something you wouldn't expect from this game, and it's not something you're going to get. But anyway, when it comes to the controls and feel, it actually controls just like the 2D games, now just in the third dimension. Ooh, but it's actually quite good. It's very smooth and refined, and I could really say that about the entire game. It's an incredibly polished, linear 3D platforming experience. And if you've ever played a Kirby game, you know what to expect here. You're going to be sucking up things and taking their abilities. However, there's a bit more to it than that. You'll suck up giant objects like cars and become the car or a vending machine. And this is known as Big Mode, and I think this actually does add quite a bit to the gameplay. It adds that much needed sauce to the Kirby gameplay that some of the other games lack. It also certainly helps that the level design is actually good and the entire game can be played cooperatively with Bandana D joining you. Bandana D, he's a pretty cool fella. Of course, these levels are filled with my favorite, the nice set pieces that actually do utilize a lot of Kirby's abilities, and there's plenty of great moments here, like when you race around in the car or one of the many boss fights. The presentation is quite nice, the game runs quite well despite being a Switch title, the music is nice, and all around it's just a really charming game. The game is full of personality, and while the game certainly won't require any critical thinking, in fact you can kind of just turn your brain off the entire time you play this game, we're always going to need games like that, especially after a long, hard day of work, and that doesn't discount this game's quality. This is one of the best Kirby games of them all in my opinion, and it's great that Kirby finally got his 3D outing that he so very much deserved, and it's as good as it is. I'm excited for the next Kirby game. I hope it's just like this. I hope the series just kind of moves to this in general, because what they got here, it's pretty great stuff. So here we have a pretty great one with Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time. Now when I first saw this game and what kind of game it was going to be, I immediately got really excited. For a while there, Activision just had no idea what to do with Crash Bandicoot. He really went through the ringer. But after the amazing success of the Insane Trilogy, we got a brand new Crash Bandicoot game in the style of those old games, and it's arguably the best game in the whole series. Like, this is a great game, and if you're somebody who's ever liked Crash Bandicoot in any capacity, you should totally check this one out. But beyond that, this game has quite a bit to offer. When it comes to the story, it's about as simple as it's been in all the other Crash Bandicoot games. It takes place after the third one, ignoring Wrath of Cortex, and sees Cortex and Entropy coming back to try to take over the world. And of course, Crash, Coco, and now Tawna have to stop them. The story's alright, it's got a good sense of humor, it certainly has its moments, and it's about as goofy as you would expect it to be. But where this game really shines is in its gameplay. It is OG Crash Bandicoot gameplay brought to the modern era, where it's got the ass camera. Yeah, it's following Crash or whichever character you are behind them the entire time. It's got that hallway-like design. It's incredibly linear, but it is so refined. Crash has tons of different abilities. You get these masks that give him even more abilities. These levels actually really utilize these masks. When I first saw this, I thought it was going to be super gimmicky and kind of lame, but no, these actually really are extensions of Crash's abilities, and these levels utilize the masks to the fullest. I like all of the masks. I love Crash's abilities. He feels so good. This is the best Crash Bandicoot has ever felt. And then there's actually a number of other playable characters. Tawna shows up here. She's obviously completely different. She's got a cool grappling hook, and she's fun to play as. Dingodile of all characters is playable, totally different from the rest. He's fun. You even get to play as Cortex, and Cortex is pretty cool. And it all feels just so tight, so polished. The game in general is incredibly polished, and it looks great also. This is one of the best looking 3D platformers, period. It's a great looking game, some excellent environments, the lighting goes crazy, the animations and the models are all great. I love the art style and aesthetic. This game's just oozing with personality. And the music is pretty good as well. The level design is excellent. The game has just tons and tons of collectibles. Like, if you want to go 100%, this game is not messing around. Not only is it incredibly difficult, but there is so much shit to collect. Honestly, there's probably too much. I've never 100%ed this game, and I doubt I ever will, but I can say that the game is still fantastic, and I have zero problem recommending this one. So here's a game that I just can't stop yapping about, and that is Bomb Rush Cyberfunk. I feel like I've talked about this game like a dozen times at this point, but I'll talk about it a dozen more. The game is excellent. Yeah, it might look like an extreme sports game, but if you've ever played this game or Jet Set Radio, which is its clear influence and inspiration, you'll know it's a mix of a 3D platformer and an extreme sports game. And the game is just so good on so many levels. I was hoping this game would be, maybe as good as Jet Set, probably not as good as Jet Set Radio Future, but this game, low-key, it's actually better than Jet Set Radio in a few key areas. The controls are better, it's a breeze to control, it feels super smooth, the trick system is better, it's not super complex, but it's easy to pick up and understand. The platforming itself is excellent, the level design is phenomenal. Like, I love how these areas are designed, and the gameplay, yeah, it's nothing too crazy. You really are just kind of jumping around, tagging shit up, and graffitiing stuff is always going to be a good time. Yeah, combat does show up from time to time, and like Jet said, it's easily the weakest aspect of the game, but it's barely in the game, trust me. Most of the time, you're jumping around, tagging everything in sight, and it really is a great time. I remember when this game came out, I had just been laid off, and I didn't want to play anything else. I didn't want to do anything else. I just wanted to play this. It was just so much fun, and it was a lot of comfort for me. And here we are a few years later, and I'm still highly recommending the game. I love the game's aesthetic. I love how it looks. It very much goes for that Jet Set Radio Future look, and it's awesome. The music is phenomenal. I still listen to the music nowadays, and this really is one of my favorite games of the 2020s. High key. Oh yeah, and then the game does have a story. The story in this game, yeah, it's just kind of whatever, and I won't lie, it's not as memorable or interesting as Jet Set's story, but it's fine enough. It gets the job done. It leads to a really cool boss fight at the end of the game, and yeah, this is just a great game overall. If you're somebody who's ever had any interest in Jet Set or this game, I really recommend you check it out. Like, it's getting pretty cheap nowadays. There's a crazy mod support scene, at least for the PC version, and I really can't recommend it enough. So here's a favorite of mine with PsychoNuts 2. It feels like it took forever for this game to release, but when it eventually did, it did not disappoint. I was blown away with how good PsychoNuts 2 is. I love the original game to death. It's one of my favorite games of all time, and this game, it is almost, if not just as good as the original game. How often does that happen, where a sequel comes out like nearly 20 years later and it's just as good as the original? I'll tell you, that's pretty rare, but PsychoNuts 2, it's one of those games. I will say this about PsychoNuts 2. Out of all of the games that I've talked about today, none of them have a story as good as PsychoNuts 2. PsychoNuts 2 has an excellent story, picking up from the last and seeing Raz go into more brains, and that's all I'm going to say about the story. It is fantastic. It is excellent. It has some of the best characters of not only any 3D platformer, but any video game. It is just such a lovable, amazing cast of characters. A bunch of characters returned from the first one, but there's some great new ones as well. There's really not a bad one or dislikable one here. I just genuinely, truly love the story of PsychoNuts 2, and I really wanted to see where things would go. Is it as shocking and crazy as the original? Maybe not, but I still think it is pretty good. And when it comes to the gameplay, it's actually very similar to the original game, where there's kind of this bigger open area that you get to freely explore in the real world, where you solve some basic puzzles, and then you also get to go into people's brains for a variety of reasons. And once you're in these, some really funky, crazy shit's about to go down. There's going to be a lot of platforming, puzzle solving, a bunch of other genres are going to come in, and all of the levels are wildly different from the last. I will say there's not a bad level here. They're all excellent, from that initial level with all the teeth to the final level. You will not be disappointed. The control and feel is just as good as the original game. Pretty good for the most part. Raz doesn't have like a crazy complex moveset, but it gets the job done, and there's some interesting level design. And oftentimes the level design is as good as it is because of all the other things going on, not just the actual platforming level design as well. Like, you solve some cool puzzles, you interact with a bunch of awesome characters, and it's just so memorable. The presentation is also incredibly memorable. I love this game's aesthetic. I like the art style. I like how it changes for a few of these worlds, and it all feels just incredibly unique. This is one of the most memorable games of the 2020s in my opinion, and it's also one of the best games of the 2020s. If you like the original, if you like 3D platformers, I highly recommend you check this one out. It just went so hard, and I feel like a few years later this game's kind of being forgotten about, and I don't want it to be forgotten about. It is so good. Don't let it become the first game where it's this underrated classic. We gotta hype up PsychoNuts 2 still. Trust me, it's a good one. So in the number 5 spot, we have another great one with It Takes Two. It feels like this game kinda came out of nowhere. I mean, I knew about A Way Out and I knew it was pretty good, but It Takes Two really took things to a whole new level, and it is primarily a 3D platformer, a great one at that. So at this point, if you're still somehow unfamiliar with this one, let me briefly go over it. It is about a man and a woman who are getting a divorce, and they're trying to explain that to their child, that they don't love each other anymore, when all of a sudden they're whisked away and turned into these tiny dolls. They are then told by the Book of Love that they're going to need to save their relationship in order to become big again and save their daughter. And so the two of them are going to work together. The story really isn't anything all that special, and the book's kind of annoying, but it gets the job done for the most part. There still are some memorable moments thrown in here and there though. When it comes to the gameplay, yes, the entire game is cooperative. Co-op is required. You have to have another person playing with you. It is absolutely essential to the game, but it really does elevate the experience. For the most part, it's a 3D platformer, and it controls like a dream. You always have perfect control of your characters. They can do a dash, a jump, a double jump. You can even wall jump. It's nothing too complex. It's not an expressive platformer, but what makes It Takes Two so good is the variety, the level design, how many different gimmicks show up here. Yeah, a majority of the time you're jumping around all over the place, but it seems like every hour the game introduces something completely different from the last. One moment you're in a boat taking down other boats. Another moment it's a third-person shooter. Sometimes it's a puzzle platformer. The game just has a ton of variety, imagination, and it feels like it's just overflowing with ideas. Good ideas also, and nothing feels tacked on. Nothing feels half-assed. Everything actually feels like there's a lot of effort put into it, and it's all really well done. The game is very to the point, it's exceptionally polished, and every single moment is great, genuinely. All of the game is excellent. There's no filler here, it's all killer. It's one of the best 10-hour experiences you'll have with any video game. There's also a bunch of minigames, like tons of minigames, and these are also really fleshed out. They're a lot of fun, and doing it all with somebody else, oh, it's so good. You really have to work together for every single thing you do in this game. You pretty much can't do anything by yourself. For instance, you'll be given 2 powers, each character given a power, and the puzzle will require you to use both powers simultaneously to get through it. And the game just has so many creative ways of making you work together because remember, it takes 2.
Shut up, bitch!
Like, this game is going to, if it hasn't already, gone down as one of the best cooperative experiences to ever happen in gaming. I have nothing but praise for it. Same goes for the presentation. It's just a great looking game. At this point, if you haven't tried It Takes Two, I don't really know what you're waiting on. Just check it out. So in the number 4 spot, we have a game that you may not have expected to see on this list, and that is Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury. I know some people might say Super Mario 3D World isn't exactly a modern 3D platformer, but you know what, 2013, it's close enough. And the game was re-released with Bowser's Fury, and you know what, I'm just including it all on here, and that's because it's an awesome game. I know that a number of people didn't really care for Super Mario 3D World. They didn't like that it wasn't like Sunshine or Galaxy or eventually Odyssey, but I actually didn't mind all that much. Maybe it's because it wasn't the Mario game we were all hoping it would be when it released, but looking back, I think this is a pretty great game and one of the best 3D platformers of the last 10-15 years. And I think the addition of Bowser's Fury only makes it better. The story for both 3D World and Bowser's Fury is about as simple as it gets. It's just about Mario going up against Bowser. But the gameplay is pretty different for both of them, so I'll start with 3D World. The game is playable entirely in co-op and it's actually played from fixed camera perspectives. Kinda like 3D Land, only it's on a much grander scale. The entire game is on a much grander scale with some really expansive, varied levels that are actually way better than people give them credit for. Sure, they might seem a little big since, you know, it's designed for up to 4 people, but I don't think that hampers or minimizes the excellent design in any way. There are so many great levels, moments, set pieces, you name it, it's all here and it's a lot of fun. There's also a bunch of power-ups that show up here as well, and they keep the gameplay more varied and fresh. I like the power-ups to this game, even if they are pretty Mario-esque, or I guess New Super Mario Bros.-esque. And I know a lot of people saw this game and went, oh, it's just New Super Mario Bros. In 3D, and we're sick of New Super Mario Bros. And my response to that is, yeah, visually, it is pretty similar to New Super Mario Bros. And I don't really care that much for this game's aesthetic, but the gameplay really is totally different, and it's so much better than New Super Mario Bros. Like, I have always had a lot of fun with this game. Wii U, Switch, doesn't really matter, it's always great. There's plenty of reasons to go back to it as well, not just because the game is a whole lot of fun and there's some great levels and it controls well, but there's actually a lot of things to collect. There's some secret levels, and I've 100%ed this game and I don't regret it whatsoever. Now, when it comes to Bowser's Fury, this is actually very different from the base game. This is like an open world 3D platformer where you get to explore this giant open area and use Mario power-ups pretty much whenever you want, and you can go nuts with these power-ups and use them to totally skip areas and platforming with them, kind of like Demon Turf, but now with the power-ups. The game is also played from a third-person perspective now as opposed to the more fixed camera angles of the main game, and yeah, this is actually really fun. This is like a whole nother game as well. If you want 100% this, you're looking at another 5 to 10 hours, and it's totally worth it. It's worth it to try to collect everything. You can explore and see everything. The game actually has a great sense of exploration. There's replayability thanks to storing the power-ups. Bowser showing up pissed is always going to be fun. I love the music that shows up. It looks great. It runs great. I got nothing but high marks for Bowser's Fury as well. So the two of these combined, yeah, there's a reason it's on the list. It's pretty great stuff. Is it the Mario game for everybody? No, certainly not. And if you're somebody who likes Galaxy, Sunshine, Odyssey more than this style of gameplay, I can't blame you, but I still think this is a very good game. So in the number 3 spot, we got a pretty recent title. We have Split Fiction, and you might be saying, oh, that's just recency bias. The game isn't actually that good. Really? I think the game is actually that good. and it's arguably quite a bit better than It Takes Two. So the story is not as simple as It Takes Two. It's about these two writers trying to get funding and publishing, but in order to do so, they have to go into these simulations where it recreates their stories. But after some tomfoolery, these two girls end up together in their own simulation, and the simulations start to mix, and now it's up to the two of them to get the hell out of there. While I wasn't really feeling the story, especially the characters at first, they quickly grew on me, and I actually came to appreciate the characters. I think the story is good by the end of it. Outside of the antagonist, he was just like comically evil. But there is way more to this game than just the story. The gameplay is absolutely incredible, totally building off of what It Takes Two started. Like, this game is just freaking brilliant. It controls just as well, if not even better than It Takes Two. You have total control of these characters, nothing but a dream, truly. But where this game really succeeds is the variety. You thought there was a lot of variety with It Takes Two? Oh, you haven't seen anything. This game goes absolutely bonkers when it comes to the variety. Every hour, no, every like 30 or 40 minutes, you are doing something completely different. Yes, there is a lot of platforming. A majority of the game is platforming, and the platforming is really great, but you do so many other crazy things in this game. There's combat with like a sword. There are plenty of puzzles to solve. There's a pinball section. There are so many vehicles you get to commandeer in this game that are all wildly different from each other, and it's all so fleshed out. Nothing is thrown in there. Nothing is scrapped together. It's incredibly polished. It feels great. It really just all comes together, and it feels like such a love letter to video games in general. I was shocked with just how great everything was in this game. I was expecting at least, one of these sections to not be all that great. No, it really is all excellent, and jumping between science fiction and traditional fantasy, it was all really cool. It created some great dichotomy, and it just goes so hard, especially the last hour of this game. The last hour of this game is wildly innovative. It is some of the most innovative gameplay I've seen in the last few years. I was genuinely blown away. Like, I'm not going to spoil it. I'm just going to say it's some really great shit. And after that, I was like, oh yeah, no, this is a top tier game. It is a must play. It doesn't matter if you even like 3D platformers or not, you're going to like this one. The platforming's great. All of the sections are great. The presentation is excellent. The characters and story, while it might not be as great, especially at the beginning, I think it'll grow on most people, and I was just blown away with how good this game is. Like It Takes Two, it absolutely does require a second person. It is essential, but it really does elevate the experience, and it makes it awesome. I have nothing but the highest praise for this game, and I don't think it's recency bias. I think this game really is all that, and I think most people that have played this game think it's all that as well. And I'm happy that such a high quality game is a 3D platformer. We need more games like this. Joseph Ferris, man, true king. Hazelight Studios, they're awesome as well. Send in a whole lot of love. So here's a game that everybody's probably pretty familiar with at this point, and that is Astrobot. When I said that Astrobot was one of the best 3D platformers ever, I wasn't kidding. Here it is in the number 2 spot. Like, this game just does everything so right. It's a great love letter to video games in general, and then it's a great 3D platformer as well. It's also probably the best looking game on this entire list. Like, it looks exceptional. I love how this game looks. It has such a great aesthetic, but then there's so much detail to the characters, to the environments, to the lighting, and it just gets better and better the more you play through it. The frame rate is also rock solid the entire time. Yeah, this is a real looker, but it's not just all pretty graphics. Ooh, no, there's actually some gameplay to this one, and the gameplay is pretty good. Astrobot controls beautifully. Like, he feels so good to control, so responsive and tight. It's great stuff. His moveset, it really isn't all that complex. It's pretty basic, actually. It's just that almost every level you get a different power-up, and these power-ups are so all over the place, and I mean that in a good way. Some of them are pretty simple, like you get to blast off like a little rocket, you get to throw some hands like you're Rayman. Other times you freaking shrink and become the size of a mouse. It's pretty varied. I love how different all of the power-ups are, and each level really feels like it was built around these power-ups, and the levels are just so good. They are crazy imaginative. They're like Mario level good. All of the levels have that sauce. That, you know what I'm talking about, that sauce, where every single inch of these levels feels important in some way. Even if it really isn't, it still feels important. It's a blast to go through all of these levels and collect as much as you can. The main collectible of the game is the other astrobots. While there's plenty of normal ones, there are hundreds of these things, and there's tons of throwbacks to other PlayStation games and just games in general. Crash, Spyro, Ape Escape, God of War, Horizon, Sly Cooper, Street Fighter, Resident Evil, Silent Hill, Metal Gear Solid, Persona, Spider-Man, Tomb Raider, Legacy of Kain. It just keeps going on and on and on. There are so many references to video games, and I love it. I love the collectibles. The game is a great sense of exploration, and it made me want to collect everything in this game. I actually 100%ed this game, and that's how I think everybody should play it. There's also the new challenge levels. The game is a boppin' soundtrack, and the story's pretty cute also. It's about Astrobot trying to find all of the other Astrobots after some scumbag alien steals the PS5, I guess he's a scalper, and separates our main bot from all of the other characters. It's just really great stuff. This game really was just a total joy to play through. It really reminds me of old Sony. It feels like this is what older Sony games were, just that kind of vibe, that atmosphere, that just fun, playful nature that really changed, I'd say, after The Last of Us or Uncharted, but this game is awesome. There is also Astro's Playroom, which is totally deserving of an honorable mention. That's the pack-in title for the PS5. I would have it on this list if I didn't have Astrobot, but I thought I'd just throw it in with Astrobot because, yeah, they are very similar and they're both excellent. They are both totally worth playing if you have a PS5. I think these are must-play titles. These are arguably the best games on the PS5. High key, legit, really, yes. So what are you doing? Go play it. You're gonna love it. I assure you, you're gonna love it. But then in the top spot, the #1 best modern 3D platformer, you knew it had to be Mario Odyssey. Like, what else could it really be? Mario Odyssey is one of my favorite games of all time. I love Mario games, I genuinely do, and Mario Odyssey, man, it just blows like every Mario game out of the water in my opinion. This game was just phenomenal from the moment I turned it on to the last time I turned it on, which still has not happened because I've come back to this game several times and it's always awesome. I've talked about this game several times and I'll talk about it several more times because the game is just mad good. I mean, it's Mario Odyssey. You already know what the game is. It's about Mario trying to go rescue Peach as always, but then the game just goes off the rails and goes totally nuts. They finally gave us what we really wanted, the real follow-up to Mario 64. Yes, there was Sunshine and Galaxy 1 and 2 and 3D Land and 3D World, but those are all pretty linear games, especially Galaxy. This is more like 64 where they drop you into just these big open areas and are like, go explore, utilize Mario's moveset to go explore. Instead of there being, you know, like 120 power stars, there's the moons and there are hundreds, maybe 1,000 moons. There's so many freaking moons in this game. There's so many collectibles and it's a blast to get all of them. And what's great is, like Mario Sunshine, you can pretty much customize your playthrough. You don't have to get every moon to beat the game. I don't even think you need half of them to beat the game. So you can get the moons that you want to get. If you want to go and try to get them all, go ahead and do it. You're going to be playing the game a long time though. But you're going to have a total blast because these are some of the best levels of any 3D platformer. I love every single level in this game. They're all wildly different from each other. They all have a ton of personality. They all have so many amazing moons and moments to them. Like, it's just a blast. It really is a total blast. Mario's moveset is awesome. Maybe the best moveset he's ever had. Long jump returns. He can roll. He's got Cappy. Cappy extends the moveset. You can play as a bunch of these enemies. Every level is different thanks to Cappy. Cappy's just a real great time. I genuinely love a lot of these transformations and it's one of the reasons I've come back to the game. That and the replayability. The music's great, the game looks great. I love how all the areas are based off of different places in the world. It's got fantastic pacing, it keeps things going. Like, it really is one of the quintessential video games of the last decade. It's one of those games where it doesn't really matter what kind of game you like. I think you're gonna like Mario Odyssey. Even if you like just hate fun, I guess, and hate 3D platformers, you'll probably still have some fun with Mario Odyssey. I can't imagine somebody going like, yeah, I hate Mario Odyssey. Okay, I'm sure in the comments it's going to show up now, but like unironically going, I don't like this game. Well, my question would be then, what the hell do you like? How are you not going to like one of the best games ever? No hyperbole. I'm rambling at this point. That's the end of this video. I'm sure you knew Mario Odyssey was going to be my top game, but I guess I'm predictable. And so with that, I hope you all enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know of your favorite 3D platformers. If you made it to this part of the video, you can comment a favorite of mine, some spicy nuggets. Man, I'm trying to get some Wendy's spicy nuggets. I just had some like last week, but I'm craving them again. I don't know what's wrong with me. I love me some spicy nuggets. I need to stop. I'm hungry. Okay, talk to you all later. See ya. Bye-bye.